to amend the National Police Service Commission Act 2011. Order number 9, the Basic Education Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2023, second reading.
Thank you. The Honorable Mary Wamaua. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the Basic Education Amendment Bill, National Assembly number 59 of 2023, be read a second time. Madam Speaker, this bill is amending Section 18(2) of the Basic Education Act 2013, which states that the County Education Board may, in consultation with the National Education Board and relevant stakeholders, appoint a sub-county education office with the clear function and powers. Madam Speaker, this one talks of may, so it is not a must. And that is why, Madam Speaker, I saw it okay, so that we may have under the current structure of County Education Board, the CEB, which has the option of establishing a sub-county office as a liaison. While the liaison office at the sub-county plays a role, its functions are still validated by the county board. This Honorable Speaker has led to significant delays in critical education functions such as school registration, school management reports review, and other administrative approvals. Madam Speaker, some of the counties that have very fast geographical jurisdiction covering multiple constituencies, and with that, we have to face delays in validating and approving things. Madam Speaker, if you take an example of Nairobi County, Kiambu County, and Nakuru County, you will see how long sometimes some of the issues required to be done and that need urgent attention takes a long time before the county is able to transact all what is required, and the same goes to Jogoo, and then by the time it gets back, we waste a lot of time, while else some of these things can be done by the sub-county education board if only we can be able to pass this amendment. Honorable Speaker, previously, under the old administrative structure, before the 2010 Constitution, we had the District Education Board. The District Education Board, the DEB, was responsible for registering and management of educational institutions in the sub-county, working to complement the provincial and the National Education Board. While else today, Madam Speaker, we do not have, and that is why I'm requesting this House to agree that we amend by bringing back the Sub-County Education Board so that we can be able to give a bit of some efficiency and fast-track this without a lot of the delays. The replacement of District Education Board, Madam Speaker, model with liaison offices has resulted in a lot of inefficiencies, creating bottlenecks in service delivery at the local level. The idea behind this bill, Madam Speaker, was conceived after observing the delays and the bureaucratic handles in school registration and administration due to the centralized nature of County Education Board. Madam Speaker, this bill proposes as follows. One, the establishment of sub-county education boards. This will have legal authority to oversee and manage education matters at the sub-county level, thus reducing dependency on the county board for each and every decision. Madam Speaker, a lot of what is required to be done as far as our learning institution is concerned is merely the work of the county education board. What the sub-county education do is just to oversee where the county education board will come to validate a rubber stamp, something that would have already been done by the sub-county education board, and the same maybe fast-tracked to get it to the ministry. This bill proposes to give the sub-county board the mandate to handle the following functions independently. One, it can have the registration and establishment of a bank data of all education and training institutions in the sub-county. Madam Speaker, the officers in the sub-county offices understudy the terrains and the geographical areas and the needs of the local people more better than the county officials who are far away from it. And therefore, issues to do with the registration of the schools in an area where it is required, including establishment of all the data information required. This one can be fast-tracked by the sub-county education office, and the same gotten maybe a copy given to the county education board, but immediately it will be able to get to the ministry offices, and any reply which is needed will be able to get to the required client. Madam Speaker, too, in consultation with the resident of the sub-county, the recommended institution may receive funding for infrastructural development. Madam Speaker, you understand that even for infrastructure development that are required in the schools, this is still the work of the county education board. And therefore, you will find that a lot is usually done by the sub-county, but it cannot be enough until when it is validated by the county education board members for it to get it to the national office or a Jogo, so that a list can be developed for all those schools that really require the infrastructure. But we can be able to save time and a lot of delay, whereby this one can be given to the sub-county education board if only we agree to establish and to legalize, to give it power and the function that is supposed to do, and we avoid a lot of wasting time. Madam Speaker, the review of the Board of Management reports of the respective schools within the sub-county and submit the reports to the county education board. Madam Speaker, you can imagine, right now we were reviewing and renewing the BOM members for all the primary schools and secondary school. And imagine, Madam Speaker, if a certain county like Nairobi or Nakuru or Kiambu and others that are very fast, you imagine how long it will be taken if at all it is the county education body that is weighted to do all this. They usually organize themselves in a way that the sub-county officials do this, but that is not their work. So what this bill is proposing, we give the mandate for the sub-county education members who understand the areas and the need of majority of the schools, so that it is done, and whatever they come out with is what now will be taken to the county just to note and then forwarded to the ministry. But you see, if we wait for the county education board, it cannot, and it will take such a long time. So whatever is usually done is what we really want, just to put it into law and within the Education Act, so that it's not like an alleged program within the county education office. Madam Speaker, the sub-county can also be allowed to assess the budgetary requirement of running institution in the sub-county and develop allocation programs, including programs on allocation of institutional range. Madam Speaker, you find that all this, even the ranch program, is still the work of the county education boards. And therefore, if at all we bring back the sub-county education board, just like the way long time we had the district education board, we are going to make some of these areas very easy and we still save on time. Madam Speaker, we can also give the performance of any other function that may be assigned by the county education board without waiting for the county education board members coming to the sub-county or to a given school. This is work that can be delegated within the mandate of the sub-county education board to be done, and therefore being more efficient and saving a lot of time. Madam Speaker, also, the bill proposes on the decentralization of decision-making power. Madam Speaker, you understand it, within our constitution, we have talked of devolution, meaning bringing services closer to our people. And if we go ahead and establish the sub-county education board, we are making sure that whatever is required is centralized or decentralized within the area where the issue has come from, instead of waiting until when the county education board will come on site to get on what is required. Therefore, Madam Speaker, the sub-county offices will no longer act merely as liaison offices, waiting for mercy from the county education board, but will be empowered to be a board in order to process and approve certain functions, including school registration, management oversight, and therefore this will still be assisting in making sure that we are really not wasting a lot of time. Madam Speaker, the board will also improve on service delivery in schools. By reducing bottlenecks caused by large county jurisdiction, the bill will ensure that administrative tasks will be handled efficiently. Madam Speaker, some counties are very big. They have so many sub-counties. And you can imagine, Madam Speaker, if many of the schools, because most of the time we ask for the requirements or even the quarterly reports that are required, and you imagine the county education board is waited to look at them before they are subjected or they are taken to the national office. Madam Speaker, this will take a lot of time. Believe it is given to be done by the sub-county education board if we agree to amend, or if the House agrees, we give back the weight that was with the district education board. You will see we'll be saving a lot of time and will remove all this backlog of reports that needed to be looked at by the county education board. Madam Speaker, you also look at the meager resources that are usually given to the county education board, Madam Speaker. And a lot needed to be done. Therefore, even having one board meeting, and they are supposed to conduct 3 board meetings to look at all that work coming from all the sub-counties, then you can see we'll not be giving the best of the services and saving time to our people or to our schools that are waiting for the report. Madam Speaker, if you look at the composition that is proposed by this bill for the sub-county education board, you'll find that we want to have the member of parliament for each of the constituency within the sub-county who shall be an ex-officio board member. For this function being of the national government, you'll find that most of the time that the members of parliament, especially of the single constituencies, sometimes need to add something onto the issues, especially when it comes to infrastructures of the school, so that we can be able to advise the board that this school, we have allocated this much from the NGCDF. And therefore, the school that will need funding from Jogo or from the government, apart from the resource of the CDF, is this and that. And that one, by having the member of parliament, will make sure that we are not giving funding to the same school, which will also be getting maybe funding from the ministry. Madam Speaker, we'll also have the sub-county director of education or a designate of the sub-county director of education. 3, Madam Speaker, we'll have the county executive in charge of education or a designate of the county executive in charge of education. 4, we'll have one person designate from the Teachers Service Commission. 5, Madam Speaker, we'll have 2 persons nominated by the Teachers Trade Union. We have NAT, we have KUPPET, and we would need to have a representation of each of those Teachers Trade Union. And lastly, Madam Speaker, we would require 2 educationists of at least 5 years studying based in the sub-county nominated by the Parent Teachers Association in the sub-county. In matters appointing the chairperson of the board, the cabinet secretary will ensure that during all this, not more than 2/3 of the members are of the same gender. Because, Madam Speaker, if at all this one is not clearly checked, sometime you may find all those categories of the members to be in the sub-county education board may be male or may be female. Therefore, it is good to make sure that the 2/3 gender rule is looked at so that every gender is represented. And at the same time, equal opportunities for persons with disabilities and other marginalized group is also checked so that all the interest of all the people within the locality is represented. And also make sure that all the appointees to the board reflect the interest of all sections of the society. Madam Speaker, when it comes to the chairperson of a sub-county education board, there is the qualification that I've stated here that he or she should be somebody who possesses a minimum qualification of a degree, and the members are also possess a minimum qualification of secondary education with the post-secondary certificate as an added advantage. Madam Speaker, we have to look at the qualification of the members of the sub-county education board, because we cannot put people who do not understand and who do not have the qualification, yet we are talking of people who will be looking at the interest of education. They must also be qualified, and the maximum we cannot limit. Here I'm only talking about the minimum qualification. When it comes to the member board appointment under Section 2, there shall be the secretary to the sub-county education board, and that will be the sub-county director of education. The staff of the sub-county education board shall be persons serving under the county public service board of the respective county. And the second schedule shall apply to conduct the business and affairs of a sub-county education board with the necessary modification, Madam Speaker, and except as provided in the second schedule, a sub-county education board may regulate its own procedure. Madam Speaker, the chairperson and members of this board shall be appointed for a term of 5 years and be eligible for the appointment for one further term. When it comes to the meetings, Madam Speaker, A sub-county education board shall hold meetings on a need basis at such places and at such times as the county education board shall consider all the necessary for the proper discharge of its function. Madam Speaker, we do not want to invite things like the remunerations, because majority of them, we want to get them from within the county, within the county public service board of the respective county, and therefore the remuneration they are getting from the department that they are in. This one will only call for a small allowance, because wherever they are coming from, they are being paid. And when it comes to meeting, it is on a needy basis. Notwithstanding subsection 1 that I've read earlier, the sub-county education board shall not meet more than 4 times in each financial year. The members of the sub-county education board shall be paid by the organization they represent in the board such allowances and disbursement for expenses as may be approved by the cabinet secretary in consultation with the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Madam Speaker, a sub-county education board may from time to time co-opt in its membership, such person not being more than 3, as it is satisfied that possess skills and experience necessary in the discharge of the function of the sub-county education board. Madam Speaker, in this one, there may come an issue to do with any kind of construction, and you find that you need an architectural who may be not represented in the board. You may also need any other skill that is also not found within the membership of the members of the board. And those are such members that I'm saying they may be co-opted so that they can come and give the skill that is required. And Madam Speaker, you remember, within the county, we have all these people. We have the architectural and we have other, like the quantity surveyors, and therefore we are not going to look for these people from far. And it is only on the area and on the scale that we do not have within the membership of this. Madam Speaker, if the House supports and passes this bill, we will have several benefits that will make us be efficient, save a lot of time, and which will also assist in making sure the running in our institution, may it be the primary, the secondary, and any other tertiary which is present within that sub-county, will have several benefits, like 1, faster school registration and approval processes. Madam Speaker, we can also have an enhanced school monitoring and oversight, because it is being done within the sub-county and not the county that may not be able to do exactly as per the demand, because we are saying some of the counties are very huge, they are very fast, and therefore with the sub-county, you can be assured that the monitoring and the oversight of whatever is happening in our schools, including even when it comes to discipline of our students or pupils in the schools. Madam Speaker, we also have reduced bureaucratic red tapes. And in this, Madam Speaker, I want to mean that schools will have direct access to decision-making authorities at the sub-county level, instead of waiting for responses from county education board covering a large area, and this one may deter the immediate or the urgency that of such an issue may be required. Madam Speaker, with this also, we'll have increased community involvement in education management. Madam Speaker, the local education stakeholders will have a stronger voices in shaping policies and school development plans at the sub-county level. We have so many good stakeholders who always like to support education. And if all this is happening within the locality of the people who understand the terrain, and also who understand the stakeholders who are within, then you can see with the immediate effect, they can be able to convene and to get what is required, including some of those who always chip in their own way. Madam Speaker, also, we would have improved efficiency in teacher and resource allocation. Sub-county education offices will be better positioned to oversee staffing needs and resource distribution in schools within their respective jurisdiction without just waiting for the county education board to come and advise now that we have brought the sub-county education board within the area where the schools are. Honorable Speaker, countries like South Africa, Canada, India, Rwanda have successfully implemented decentralized education management system. Madam Speaker, for example, in South Africa, local education district offices plays a critical role in decision making, reducing the bureaucratics that we are talking about of delays and improving school oversight all the time. Madam Speaker, the current centralized model has a gap, and the introduction of sub-county education board will go a long way in resolving the challenges school faces today. Madam Speaker, when it comes, like I give an example in my constituency, because it is a first area, it is second in Radimas from Keharu, I found that there are so many areas where children walk more than 5 or 7 kilometers to access education. And you know, within our education policy, our children are supposed to access education with ease. And you find that when we start these schools, the issue to do with the registration takes such a long time. And Madam Speaker, sometimes you find that the parents or the local people within that area, like half of my constituency is allied, the parents cannot be able even to get the BOM teachers to pay. So sometimes you find it is the member of parliament who usually get into her or his pocket to pay the teachers, because the parents cannot be able to pay these teachers on levels of BOM. And therefore you will find this member will pay these teachers as if he or she is the TAC for such a long time, just because of the delay of the legislation, because it is such a long procedure before you get to the county to do the same. Madam Speaker, I urge my colleagues in this honorable house to support this bill. And I think with that, I will request, I beg to move and request Honorable Muthoni maybe to second. Thank you.
Honorable Muthoni, proceed to second.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to add my voice to this very important bill, and I want to thank Honorable Mary Wamahua for bringing this very important amendment, Amendment Bill 59 of 2023, so that we can look and review the educational structures in this country. Honorable Madam Speaker, it is important for us as a country to acknowledge that today we have devolution. And the purpose why we brought devolution, it is because devolution was meant to bring services closer to the people. so that the citizens of this country can fully enjoy the fruits of devolution. Madam Speaker, this is the main reason that this bill is aiming at achieving. Madam Speaker, I want to say the Basic Amendment Bill 2023 recommends the establishment of Sub-County Education Board, which will consist of a chairperson and 6 other members who are subscribed in this bill, Madam Speaker. And it is important to note that these members who will sit in this board are members who represent the various stakeholders. Madam Speaker, the various stakeholders are mentioned in this bill, and it is important that they are all included in this composition for proper running of these sub-counties. And the reason why this sub-county is equally very, very important, it is because the sub-county education board will be a statutory body to ensure the existence and functional services in our education setup. You'll realize, Madam Speaker, that in most cases, when something happens in our school, going to the centralized place where we have the education board established, it takes time because our counties are very vast, Honorable Madam Speaker. Our counties are very vast, and we have very many schools in these counties. And if we establish these sub-counties, then and decentralize the services, it will be easier for school management. It will be easier for us to monitor and know what is happening in every corner of our school. We have had issues, Honorable Speaker, where we have had school unarrests. And sometimes we have seen our students traveling just because they want their principal transferred. They travel, walk, wake up in the wee hours of the morning and travel to access a listening ear from the district education board, which is thousands and thousands of kilometers away. But if we establish this, the sub-county education board, then they'll be able to hear their grievances at a closer age. Madam Speaker, we have had schools which do not meet the threshold of becoming established schools. But because there is nobody closer to establish how these schools are run, then, Madam Speaker, we end up becoming more proactive, more reactive, instead of becoming proactive. Proactive in that I mean, if we have closer services of these sub-counties, we will be able to monitor and know what is happening at a cross range on a day-to-day basis. Honorable Speaker, I want to say the main reason of this bill, once again, it is because the decentralized units will ensure there is efficiency in running our learning institutions. There will be improved management in the way our institutions are run. There will also be enhanced coordination. I'm saying this, Madam Speaker, because if the people who are in this board come from the locality, it will be easier for them to meet with all the stakeholders from time to time and review what is happening in our education institutions. Madam Speaker, I want to note, like the time when this education model, funding model, the education funding model of our universities came, and then information was not reaching the intended consumers of this model. The parents did not know what the model is all about. The students who are beneficiaries did not know what the model was talking about, because these policies are established from the national office. They are disseminated to the education board. They don't reach anywhere else beyond that. And this education board if it is active and proactive, the information policies will reach each and every corner of the beneficiaries within the shortest time. Then number 3, we'll have an opportunity of where the community will be engaged in their own affairs. Honorable Madam Speaker, it is important to note that education belongs, the consumers are every member of the community. And when we establish these education boards, the smaller unit, then the community will feel involved because they will be involved on a day-to-day basis on their affairs. Then the policy reforms that will come from the ministry will be able to reach them on a timely manner all the time when they require it. Madam Speaker, then the same units will ensure that these same units provide us an opportunity of promotion and better access to education. Madam Speaker, why am I saying this? Because when this board sits, they'll be able to establish where there are gaps. They'll be able to know the schools which don't have enough teachers. They'll be able to establish the schools where they lack facilities like laboratories and other amenities. And when they sit, they'll now be able to establish where they need funding. And this can only happen when this service is devolved and services brought closer to the consumers. Madam Speaker, I want to say very fast that these proposed functions of the sub-county board, sorry, I have a code, but that notwithstanding, I'll continue. These established functions will ensure and make sure that the access to the budgetary allocation will be able to benefit the intended institutions directly without people going to say it is this institution as opposed to them accessing, doing monitoring and evaluating which institution requires this budget. Then, Madam Speaker, at the same time, it will also be easier for even the area member of parliament who will be an ex-officio in this board. The area member of parliament who will be an ex-officio will be able to consume timely information on how the schools are being run. Madam Speaker, it is important for all of us to acknowledge that sometimes it's difficult even for the member of parliament to know what is happening in every corner of the constituency. But when he is sitting in this board, it will be very easy for him to consume information and know the glaring gaps in his constituency so that he can be able to address them. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to urge this House to support this very important bill so that once we pass this bill, we can be able to reap the fruits of devolution fully. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dorothy. Honorable members, I now propose the question that the Basic Education Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2023, be now read a second time. Honorable members, before we proceed with the debate, we have visitors. Seated in the public gallery this morning, we have Alista Mixed Secondary School from Dagoretti North, Nairobi County, Rockside Academy, Embakasi East Constituency, Nairobi County, and Gadega Gashero Secondary School from Mbere North Constituency, Embu County. You are welcome to the National Assembly to continue observing proceedings of the House. And I would like to give a chance to one of the members, the Honorable Beatrice Elachi. On behalf of the other members, please welcome our students.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, allow me in a special way, first to welcome all the students and especially Alista Secondary Mixed from Dagoretti North. But to just tell them, since you're all schools, and I believe that is why you've come in the morning when we are also just talking about you in the basic education that we want to see how to streamline. And then to say, I've always said education is an equalizer. And it does not matter whether your mother at that time was selling changa or was selling gederi, but she took you to school for you to become who you are. And so they have an opportunity also that when you're in school, you don't think so much about what is happening home, but try and think so much, how can I ensure within my education system where my parents have decided to ensure I go to school so that I can change my life so that it will never be like my parent again. And that is what I want to pray to my daughters and sons, that indeed even in this parliament, if everyone stands and gives you their story, they have passed through what you're passing. And so it is for you now to learn, read, take that education with it's your desire to see a better life. Make it your morning prayer, that when you wake up knowing I am praying to my God that I'm going to school to make my parents proud. So the girls who are in the gallery, this is what I'll tell you. Everything has its time. And in your youthful time, you have a time to enjoy, you have a time to do all these things. But one thing you don't have a luxury to imagine, that you can be pregnant in school. That one you should remove from your head. That one is the worst principle you can have, that you want to try, have a boyfriend, do this. I pray to you girls, focus on education. These things are always there. They will be there even when you finish, and you will enjoy it at that time. For now, you have only one thing to do. My dear daughters and sons, read for yourselves. Prepare your destiny, your future, and it all lies in education. Thank you. Madam Speaker, it will be well if I can proceed to just comment a few words on this. Okay, Madam Speaker.
I know, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, you have been waiting. But honorable members, we have more students, and I would like also to finalize with them. And for those of you who are wondering what is on the forehead of the Honorable Beatrice Elachi, today is Ash Wednesday, which marks the beginning of Lent. That is why she has a very nice mark on her forehead. Honorable members, we have seated in the public gallery this morning, Green Edgewood Academy, students from Ruiru constituency, Kiambu County, and we have Mamangina University College students from Gatundu constituency in Kiambu County. You are welcome to the National Assembly to observe proceedings of the House. And I would like to, because the Honorable Murungara will be the first in this debate, I give you a chance to also welcome the students as you proceed with the debate.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, allow me also to take this opportunity to welcome all the students of the named schools and colleges and universities who have come today to observe proceedings of the House. Let them feel welcome, especially by their leaders whom they elected, leaders who spent time here so that they are able to deliberate on issues that touch on them, and especially to ensure that they get the best of education in the country. Mine would be to encourage these young people, both young men and women, to study hard and to emulate their leaders so that tomorrow when the time comes, the country is not short of dignified leaders who will be elected, selected, and come to this parliament to represent the people of Kenya. Feel most welcome. do well in your studies, including one school that has just been named from Beere North, Kavigagasheru Secondary School. Beere North borders Tharaka constituency. It is actually very similar in topography, and I know what is in Beere is what is in Tharaka, extending all the way to Kitui, and education is the only reliance we can have if we are to make our lives better. My 2 minutes are over now. I start to contribute on the proposed amendment to the Basic Education Act through the Basic Education Amendment Bill brought to this House by the Honorable Mary Wamawa, the great lady member of Parliament for Maragua constituency in Murang'a County. May I begin by saying this is a timely bill that has been brought so that we can continue to move downwards from the top towards the bottom. We know very well that we used to have what were known as district education boards. They were DEBs, and most schools were established under DEBs. When the districts became counties, because there were 42 of them, and they became the 47 counties, because additional districts had been created between 1985 and 1992. We now had 47 counties, and the education boards were replicated in the counties. So the counties were able to get the county education board, but the many sub-counties which are now equivalent of districts do not have this board. This is the right time to establish a board that will sit at the sub-county headquarters to discuss matters education. Therefore, this bill is timely. We support it wholeheartedly so that we are able to establish these boards with or without amendments to it as proposed, because the issue of remuneration may be a little bit wanting, and I do not see why the government should not actually dedicate money so that when these members sit, they are able to draw an allowance like any other civil servant, any other person who is entitled to an allowance. While the functions of the Sub-County Education Board are set out, and these are very important functions because we will now be devolving what we have at the county level to the sub-county level. We will in essence be saying we have education board services nearer to the people. Let those who want to do things at the basic level do it from the sub-county. Registration of schools is quite hectic because we only have one director of sub-county education and one director of TSC. With this board established, it would mean if we want to register new schools, and there cannot be any policy in the country that new schools would not be registered, because from time to time, the population is increasing, and also we have to shorten the distances between one school and the other. We do not want to have our children walking long distances to go to primary schools. We do not want our children walking long distances to go to day secondary schools. So we, at the end of the day, should be aiming at every village having a primary school and possibly a day secondary school, because of the 100% transition from primary school to secondary school. It means then every primary school must have a day school attached to it to accommodate the pupils. Therefore, these boards, which we are about to establish, will be very important in doing this and also ensuring that matters education are dealt with at that basic level. As I continue to praise what this happens, let me give this House an incident that took place in Tharaka Nithi County and in my constituency, Tharaka, where I think a board like this one would have solved the problem immediately. The teacher replacement recruitment exercise was being done at sub-county levels. And I do have 3 fully fledged sub-counties in the Tharaka constituency. These are Tharaka North, Tharaka South, and Chakariga. When the allocation of slots was done, Chakariga sub-county got a 0 allocation. And
Honorable Haro, someone is making you laugh very loudly. Normally, you are a very soft guy. So please, laugh in lower tones.
thank you very much,
No,
Madam Speaker.
To the civility.
It
but
must
I'm
be very
sure that you know what you
hilarious
have
for the
agreed. Please
learned,
proceed.
gentleman, so that he's making himself quite happy in the morning, which I think is very good. But we continue with what happened to Chakariga. Chakariga got a 0 allocation, while Tharaka South was given 42 slots, which was a little bit curious, and Tharaka North was given 7 slots. So when I made inquiries, I was told the decision had been made by TSC. It had been communicated to the county director of education, and therefore, there is nothing that could be done. Of course, I took protests regarding this to this house and also to the TSC, and eventually, the TSC has directed the sub-county director through the county director through the sub-county directors to relook at the matter. What I'm trying to say here is, if we had sub-county education boards sitting at Chakariga, at Marimanti for Tharaka South, and at Gatunga for Tharaka North, this problem would not have escalated. They would have actually solved the problem promptly. They would have said there is no way we can allocate teachers this way. We cannot leave out this sub-county. We cannot give one more than the other, because there must be an element of equity when it comes to distribution, especially of the scarce jobs we have in this country. It goes without saying that the level of unemployment is too high. There is huge competition when it comes to the few slots that are available. And mine would be to say, where 2 or 3 or 4 slots are available, they must be distributed equitably, if not equally. Therefore, this board would have actually solved such a problem. And we move on to have a board sitting at the sub-county headquarters, holding meetings there, discussing matters that are brought to them by the teachers, and especially the head teachers and the principals. Today, you get a problem regarding a school, you have to go all the way to the county headquarters to get the director. When you go to the sub-county director of education, he tells you his powers are limited because he does not have a board. So to ensure that we are served properly, our people are served properly at the local level, and sub-county is quite local, let us establish these boards, let's empower them, and on remuneration, I can assure you, we should consider moving the matter so that we are resourced properly and they are remunerated at the level from consolidated fund. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I beg to support.
Thank you very much, Honorable Murungara, very well spoken. The Honorable Beatrice Elachi, you had wanted to contribute on this matter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support and to thank the Honorable Wamaua for looking at this, and at this critical time when we are entering into the new system of CBC, where we really need to streamline so many things, Madam Speaker, that have just been so bad in the Ministry of Education. And I'm hoping in the Ministry of Education we shall also see change. Because you can't tell me you can be an expert for 30, 40 years. You can leave space and bring in new breath. That's what we want to see in the Ministry of Education. Having said that, Madam Speaker, I know there's something they call, the ministry normally calls sub-county, but you find they have no powers, they have nothing. That person is just there, wondering what to do. But it is time we really completely change the way Wamaua is saying and leave this thing. And we need to now streamline the roles so that the sub-county has more powers, because it is the one that is at the base of where all the schools are. And so you find yourselves running all over. You are today in a sub-county, especially the way right now, each constituency, nearly all now is a sub-county. So we need the board. Because if there's anything that is now taking us into a roller coaster that we can't understand, is the education sector, where every time you need to really consult because of CBC. And so, as we look at this, when I look at how the whole structure was put in, so the board was supposed to advise the CS. To date, I am wondering, Madam Speaker, where is quality assurance? What happened? Where is this team? We need it for CBC. But the Ministry of Education at Jogo has decided to completely muzzle this. And so we don't have anyone. Even now when we are crying, oh, School A has all, the private schools have finished, they have built all their classrooms, they have done I don't know what. Then we want to go to the same problem we've had with 844, where then public schools just become public schools. And when results are coming, we are about to say again, now the private schools are the ones taking over, the public schools are not doing well. Why? Because we have handed over the mistake we did in education 30 years ago, health 30 years ago. Those are the consequences we are finding ourselves in, Madam Speaker. So for me, indeed, if you want to promote the standards in basic education, you need the sub-county. Because every day they can walk in any school, closer. They will tell you here things are not working. Mwalimu can rush and ask how she can be supported. Sometimes you have boards that are very interesting also. And the other day I was looking at the terms of the board, Madam Speaker, and I'm saying we need new teams to come in these schools, people who can embrace the school, people who can just find the school moving properly, a clean school. You know, there are some basic things you walk in a school and you're wondering, honestly, and you're sitting with the board and you're wondering, surely, does the school need to have this? You are the board. You are the team that needs to bring in better ideas, values for the school. Then you move it. Then the management takes it over. Then the teachers now take it over. So you find a school, I won't say the name, Madam Speaker. The other day I went into a school somewhere, and I was so angry. First of all, it's not just the board. So you receive a new teacher. 1 year down the line, the school has just deteriorated. The school money has just gotten lost. When you look at the history of the teacher is just being taken care of by TSC. And in every school they have passed, there is a mess in that school. And I asked, no, it cannot be this way. And the board, instead of bringing a solution, the next day, they go and do mandamano in the school. The board, I asked myself, how would you were supposed to give us a solution, then you bring us mandamano. I told the sub-county, I want now very serious. Because for me, education, they know in Dagoretti North, I don't joke with education. This is why I'm here. So when you bring jokes in a school, you find another school, I won't say the name, you're about to support them, you are giving them CDF 30 million to build a hall. The board decides and tells you, Madam Speaker, the parents will bring in 34 million. I asked them, you have pending bills in your school. We are about to do this. You want to spend 64 million to build a hall. Where does that work? And why do you have pending bills? Why can't you pay pending bills? So there are many things that we need this sub-county to come in, and this sub-county committee where you are an ex-official to start streamlining things in schools. Because some of the things we are doing, even for our parents, it's not making sense. I asked another day, and I asked Jogo, if parents are able to pay, when you look at the way parents are paying school fees, so most of them are on the line of 15,000. So you have a huge debt, but parents are able to pay 15,000. Why can't you have a resolution and just say, let parents pay 15, because that is what they are able to pay? Then you keep on. Then when the child is in Form 4, is when you want to know how to remain with the result slip, I don't know with what. those are the things we need this board. So that we come up also with the resolutions and we send those resolutions to the county, and the county now advises the CS that when you look at 80% in schools, extra schools, county schools, parents are able to pay a school fees 16,000, 17,000 coming down. And it is a level, it's a curve that you can see they are able. So we need to think that making 23, then the school finds itself in debt, the money will never be paid, and then we are here, we fight, we have nowhere to sit, agree. So, Madam Speaker, the other thing, when you look at what the Act of Education wanted us to do, and must be done now properly, just the way Honorable Murangaru has said, equity distribution of teachers, honestly, it is time even in this house we agree on that. I'm not saying you can't do affirmative action in other schools, but can we start at a level of equity? That we have 290 constituencies. Yes, we have others who have 1,000 schools. We have, those are now where you look at that affirmative. But at a curve that is equal, first you put equity in the schools, then now you start affirmative action. Where you have huge areas where we have many schools, now you add as an affirmative action to those schools. But at one point, you have first equity. Because that is another thing that is really, you find a school with 38 teachers of BOM, honestly. It means that school is run by BOM. And there are many, Madam Speaker, when you go especially to county schools, many schools, parents are the ones who are taking care of the teachers. So you have 6, 5, the rest BOM. And the most interesting thing is that TSC has never come up with a new system of saying, you have a BOM teacher in a school somewhere, teaching biology and chemistry. That teacher, her subject is what brings the mini grade of that school high. How I wish they would be even rewarding it that way. Because that's a TSC teacher, but it's still a BOM, but with a science in her school teaching. So, Madam Speaker, as I support Wamaua, I just want to say, this education sector, if we want to see serious CBC things, then we must be serious with the education sector. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Samuel Atandi, member for Alego Usonga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute on this bill. And from the outset, let me say that I support the bill, the amendment on the Basic Education Act to create sub-county education boards. Madam Speaker, this is a very progressive bill that I want to congratulate the Honorable Wamaua for coming up with it. Honorable Speaker, there are many functions of the currently County Education Board that these functions are very, very important for the management of education in the country. Madam Speaker, one of the functions of the county education boards is to help in the management of schools and also to influence the quality of education in our counties. Madam Speaker, this role alone has not been effective as the county education boards as constituted they have not been able to do this role effectively because their mandate includes working across the counties. Some of those counties are so big and wide with many schools, and therefore the creation of sub-county education board is going to help have a small team that is only focusing on the sub-counties to ensure that the standards of education and quality of education is up. You find, Madam Speaker, that if you visit a county with, let's say, 5 sub-counties, then when the results of the results are released, KCC results or KCP results, you find that one sub-county has done very well, and the other sub-counties have done so poorly. So it means that this particular board is not effective in handling this particular function across all the sub-counties. So therefore, having a sub-county education board that is purely focusing on one sub-county is going to ensure that we are having quality performance of our schools. The other role, Madam Speaker, that the Education Board does is to approve creation of new schools. Madam Speaker, I have had difficulty starting new schools because of the ineffectiveness of the county education boards. The number of times they sit, the availability of membership when they call meetings, to an extent that it would take even a year to start a new school. And sometimes some of these new schools, they are as a result of public participation. The community are asking for the schools, but the approvals are taking years to do it. So, Madam Speaker, when we have the Sub-County Education Board, I'm sure that they will be quicker even in addressing some of the requests that come out of public participation from the community. The other function that I believe the creation of Sub-County Education Boards is going to do is a problem I have, Madam Speaker. We have this program called Free Day Secondary School System. Day secondary school is free. But, Madam Speaker, you find that parents are asked to pay for school feeding program. The amount of fee that is paid by secondary day scholars is for payment of school feeding program. So you find that, Madam Speaker, it is the County Education Board that determines how much money parents should pay for school feeding. And sometimes, Madam Speaker, you find that in your own constituency, you have made arrangements to the effect that you want your parents to pay less. But then you are told that the County Education Board already determined and said this is the amount of money that should be paid. So, Madam Speaker, this is really sometimes unfair. So if we have a Sub-County Education Board that is purely within your constituency, then this is something that you can easily agree and say, for instance, that in my schools, the school feeding fee per year is, let's say, 5K, and that is the amount of money that your parents are going to pay. But when we have this as currently constituted, where we have the County Education Board that is supposed to look at this and make decisions, it becomes very cumbersome for our colleagues to be able to determine something like this. So, Madam Speaker, I want to submit that this is a very progressive piece of law that I want to urge members to look at it and approve, so that this is going to help us, first of all, to ensure that we improve standards of education within our sub-counties, and also to ensure that there's efficiency on matters that touch on the approval of schools, approval of new schools, and any other matter that is consistent with the Education Act. Madam Speaker, there's something that I also wanted to propose that we can also consider as an amendment. I personally, Madam Speaker, do not believe that the churches have a role to play in our schools. When you go to schools, you find that a particular church is the sponsor of this school, and that they have representations in the schools. I personally do not think that they have a role to do in this arrangement. And therefore, I will also be introducing a bill to amend the Basic Education Act to delete the role of the church or religion in the affairs of the schools. The role of religion, like in my case, churches, has worked towards, creating, weak management of schools. Because you find that this school is sponsored by the Catholic, or this school is sponsored by the Anglican Church. Even when a principal or a headmaster is not performing, and that the church must have a say in whether this principal should sit here or not. I have had a case, Madam Speaker, where the community wants this particular principal to leave, but the church is saying no. The church does not look at performance. The church is looking at prayers and things like that. They don't even know how the school is doing. When they come to school, they don't even ask how is this school, the results of this school, how did they perform? How is this principal? Are there positive results? They are not interested in that. The church are only interested in prayers. So, Madam Speaker, this House needs to consider deleting the responsibility of churches in the affairs of our schools. Madam Speaker, I submit. Thank you.
I can't see your card. What is out of order, the Honorable Martin Owino? You see the table is trying to trace. There you are.
Honorable Madam Speaker, whereas I do not intend to pour cold water on sentiments made by my brother, Honorable Atandi. We acknowledge the responsibility that is played by churches in our schools and within our communities, Honorable Speaker. The churches offer spiritual nourishment to our people, and therefore their participatory role being played in our
Honorable
schools
Martin Owino,
cannot be
what
properly
is out of order?
gainsaid.
What exactly is out of order?
What is out of order, Honorable Speaker,
Yes.
is Honorable Atandi's assertion that we need to divorce.
Dokelo.
Yeah.
Honorable Jared Dokelo, for the record.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm asking,
Yeah.
what is out of
What
order?
is out of order is Honorable Atandi's assertion that we need to divorce churches and religious organizations from conducting affairs within our schools, Honorable Speaker. All of us know here that after this life, there is another life in God's kingdom, and preparation ought to ensue along that line, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, we cannot say churches have no role and should not play any role. They must be at the center of our schools. We will continue inviting them no matter what. All other organizations have failed flat, but churches have continued to thrive and to fester in all the activities that they have. And I thank you, Honorable Madam Speaker. What could have actually been
I think you have made your point. You have made your point very well. The Honorable Atandi, you have a chance to make a comment on that.
I know, Madam Speaker, I agree with Honorable Jared that spiritual nourishment is very important. But my concern is that what is the role of the church in the management of the education system? That is what I'm questioning. Because sometimes, Madam Speaker, you find that, as I give you the example I gave you, that you have a principal who is not delivering. That principal cannot leave that institution until the church says yes. Yet the church is not interested in the performance, academic performance of that school. They are not following, their interest is spiritual nourishment. So what I'm saying is that we could still have churches and spiritual leaders working with the schools, but we don't need to have it in the act to force them to be able to.
Well, honorable members, clearly I can see so many people want to comment on this, but you know, this is a house of debate. I know each one of us have our own positions on this subject matter, so there is nothing out of order. And now I would like to allow the Honorable Kainan to proceed with debate. Member for Eldas, he has really been waiting.
These things are not working. Madam Speaker, that debate right now reminds me of the 3 C's: Christianity, commerce, and civilization, which was part of the legacy of our colonial history. But that will be the debate for another day, because I'm sure the Honorable Okello and Honorable Atandi might be products from 2 different philosophies. Madam Speaker, this bill by the Honorable Mary Wamaua is a timely bill, is a good bill. It demonstrates that the member is familiar with the crisis in our education sector. And therefore, the main object, Madam Speaker, of the bill is to amend the Basic Act, the Basic Education Act, number 14 of 2013, to provide for the establishment of the sub-county education boards in every sub-county. Madam Speaker, the function of the education sub-county is also clearly spelled out. But before I make my general contribution, there are particular things that the Honorable Mary Wambaua needs to look at so that we have a definitional clarity, Madam Mary Wambaua. In our governance structure, we have Kenya, we have counties, we have constituencies. Those are constitutional entities. We also have, under the National Government Administration Act, sub-counties, administrative sub-counties. So for clarity, what do you have in mind? Do you have constituency education board or the administrative sub-county education board, so that there's clarity in the law? There's clarity in the law. So I'll be suggesting, as you look at this, in particular 18A, look at it critically so that there's no confusion, there's no ambiguity on what you have in mind. I think what we require, if you want to cascade down the county education board to another level, then the best is the constituency sub-county education board. If you leave it to the sub-county, I think it will be subjected to many definitional problems. So look at it in the next stage so that you are clear on what you want. Because the administrative sub-counties mutate every month, every year. The numbers can be decided administratively, but the constituency issues are decided every year, every 10 years. So between 10 to 12 years. So I think that clarity must also come out. The other bit is the educational qualification of the chair. It's very important that we clearly spell out, just in addition to saying a degree in what? A degree in education, a degree. I think we need also to have that clarity. Madam Speaker, in our country, once upon a time, Kenya was voted as the best in human resource capital because of the being placed with the best education system that we inherited from the British. Madam Speaker, over the years, we have turned our education system into a system that changes every day, every term, at the whims of whoever is the CS at the Ministry of Education. That is why whoever becomes the CS Minister of Education, the first thing that they do is to say they are engaging in reforms. These reforms have convoluted our education system. These reforms have caused uncertainty. These reforms have made our education system dysfunctional and unpredictable. It is the high time that we have certainty. Certainty, predictability is a key component in education. Madam Speaker, in the past, we all emphasized on the pecuniary gains of education. We went to school in order to receive part of the banking concept. You go to school, the payback was you are employed, you get a job, and you start being a productive member of the society. But times have changed. Education now is a right. It's a basic right. It's an equalizer. A basic right under our Constitution. A basic right under UNESCO. A basic right under the UN system. And therefore, what we are lacking as a country, Madam Speaker, and this is one thing that this bill actually attempts to address, is to devolve education further, the management of education further from the counties to the sub-counties. And that's why I want to plead with my good sister who has brought this bill to look at it critically so that we don't have definitional contradictions that will be used by the usual litigants outside there in the field to challenge this. So look at which one is the most appropriate term, constituency or sub-county. I will propose constituency from the county, constituency education board. And I think that, because that is definite. The other bit, Mr. Speaker, is why have we lost our status as the best in human resource capital? Mr. Speaker, over the last few years, there has been an attempt to glorify university education at the expense of tertiary institutions, Mr. Speaker. Today, the whole world, there are so many job opportunities for our tertiary institution graduates, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, literally the tertiary institutions that we have had, the technical institutions have been turned into university colleges. University college, Mr. Speaker, today if you go to London, every year they have an annual conference on education to look at the curriculum, to look at the job markets. But in our Kenyan system, everyone wants to have a degree that does not resonate well with the job market in the village, Mr. Speaker, with the job market in the international community, with the job market in the global village, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, we need to look at this and rebrand our education system so that we use this as an avenue for getting opportunities. These opportunities are not only in Kenya. These opportunities are all over. Mr. Speaker, once upon a time, to be a member of the diaspora community was considered as a renegade member of the Kenyan society. But today, the diaspora community has turned into the most productive sector of the Kenyan society, thereby overtaking the tourism sector in our foreign exchange earnings, Mr. Speaker. Few years ago, you remember, if you are identified as a member of our diaspora community, you're either associated as a descent, either someone who's not very happy with the Kenyan society. But today, look at it. Proudly, Kenyans have demonstrated the value of education system, of our education system. And that's why today, we as the legislative arm of the Republic of Kenya, in particular, the members of this August House, we need to critically dissect the issues affecting the ailing education sector. CPC is not working. Every minister has introduced his own reforms. Reforms that have made the entire sector bureaucratic, the entire sector bloated, the entire sector that has no head and tail, the entire sector that lacks management, a sector that requires critical dissection, Mr. Speaker, if truly we have to live with the tenet and expectations of the education system that we inherited from our forefathers. Mr. Speaker, in the northern Kenya, when other Kenyans were benefiting from the 3 C's, Christianity, commerce, and civilization, I may not agree with those 3 C's. But Mr. Speaker, the rights of students, the rights of parents, the rights of teachers in northern Kenya has been trampled, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you remember, the issue of weaponization of insecurity, the issue of insecurity has been taken out of context. Over the last few years, the education sector in northern Kenya has been in crisis. Not because of the real situation on the ground, but because of perceptual issues that is floating between TSC and education, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to report here that because of the actions we have taken, we as the leadership, in the next 1 year, Mr. Speaker, northern Kenya will have surplus teachers, and I want you to hear this. We will no longer be at the mercy of TSC. We will no longer be at the mercy of the Ministry of Education mandarins. We have put measures in place, and I want to thank the President, His Excellency President William Ruto, for going out of his way and ensuring that the children of northern Kenya and the pastoral communities get their rights through teacher recruitment, through other affirmative action, and proudly, Mr. Speaker, you know what we have done. Today, in my constituency alone, I have over 800 teachers who are being trained. And therefore, in the next 1 or 2 years, we will have surplus teachers, and we'll be asking them to go on serve the other parts of Kenya as part of their citizenry obligation, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, for those who are beholden to this, and I want TSC to hear, I want Ministry of Education to hear, no amount of frustrations, no amount of bureaucratic activities, no amount of historical stereotypes, no amount of those boardroom politics will deny us. We have reached where we wanted to reach. We have the health sector, we have equalized. The education sector, you know we're almost there. And therefore, I want to commend the leadership of Northern Kenya. I want to commend one more minute, Mr. Speaker, if you will.
Half a minute, 1 minute maybe. Just 1 minute, proceed.
So, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my good sister here, a very progressive constituency leader, very progressive, for thinking out of the box and bringing this bill. But please look at the definitional issues so that it is clear, it's predictable, it is consistent with the law, so that those individuals, you remember, once you do this, they will subject to the due process. And due process is bureaucratic, unfriendly. Okay? With that, Mr. Speaker, I support the bill. Thank you, Mr.
The Honorable Rendikiri. Get it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I want to congratulate Madam Mary Wamaua. This bill has come the right time. There are so many other bills that we are trying to push to amend the Education Act and also the TSC. But since this one has come earlier, let me make my comment as follows. Mr. Speaker, I have seen the draft, and I'm satisfied that the bill has generally addressed the basic requirement of enacting a bill. Mr. Speaker, I have seen the objectives of the bill, and clearly the mover has identified the objectives which are coming handy for the board to execute. I've seen the selection criteria of the board, and I have seen the functions of the board. I've equally seen the financial implications, because the board will have sittings and they will require the sitting allowances. Mr. Speaker, I've also seen that the bill has clearly stipulated the laws and responsibilities of the cabinet secretary in charge of education. Mr. Speaker, for us, the most important thing now is, does this make sense to the objectives? Mr. Speaker, I'm saying that this bill is going to improve the education management. Mr. Speaker, there is a lot of uncoordinated activities between the TSC, the ministry, and generally the stakeholders. This board, to me, will ensure there is adequate coordination between the schools, the teachers, the education stakeholders generally. Mr. Speaker, we have been looking for an organization or even an entity that will fast track and facilitate the better implementation of government policies at the grassroots level.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, you find there is a gap between the government and the recipient, and that's the Kenyan citizens. We need such a board because it will be directly addressing the issues that the stakeholders have identified at the grassroots level. Mr. Speaker, this board is coming in the right time, particularly when we are all saying we need better allocation of resources. Mr. Speaker, we are getting a lot of resources from the government, from the donors, from people of goodwill. But the way this money is being utilized at the local level to enhance the education for our children, it is not coordinated at all. So this board will come handy to ensure that their distribution, the little money that has come from the donors, the little money that has come from the government is well utilized for the benefit of our children. Mr. Speaker, this bill is very, very, very important in the sense that there are some areas in this country that have been neglected for a long time. Mr. Speaker, there are some areas that have been identified as hardship areas and left other areas not being defined as hardship areas. Mr. Speaker, I'll give an example of my constituency, Bori constituency that borders Isiolo and it borders Laikipia. We share the same geographical and climatic conditions. Mr. Speaker, I am losing so many teachers to these counties. I'm losing very valuable teachers. I'm even losing resources to these counties. Mr. Speaker, this board, from the objective that is being set, will address those disparities, will address those areas that are disadvantaged. Mr. Speaker, there is very little focus on which needs the schools requires, particularly on the staffing of teachers. Mr. Speaker, you find in my neighbors, and I'm proud to say that these people have denied me a lot of potential teachers because the TSC, the ministry, has no concern. All the best teachers are being taken to the hardship areas because of the so-called hardship allowance. Either we do with a hardship for everybody or we do with hardship for nobody. Mr. Speaker, this board is coming because it's going to put the stakeholders together. There are so many stakeholders which are not put together. When you go to an area, you'll find people, this organization, this religious organization is a sponsor of this school, the government is a sponsor of this school, There are some other schools which are even private schools. They are all stakeholders. But we need now a board that will look and sit down with all these stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, we need a board that will support, particularly the teachers, Mr. Speaker. The teachers require training. The teachers require motivation. The school management, the BOM, they require guidance. They need somebody to oversee and evaluate what they are doing on a continuous basis. Mr. Speaker, this board, if it comes on, it will support the teachers, it will bring the student also on board, it will support the student, and we start moving in the same direction. Mr. Speaker, one of the things my colleague Kenan has talked about is equity. It's equity and inclusivity. Mr. Speaker, there are so many areas that are being neglected. There's time has come now, the government to start addressing the issue of equity seriously and inclusivity. I have just come from the appointment of BOMs. And my mind is very clear. If they are Muslims or not, and if we have capable people to assist in management of the schools, they need to be included. That's inclusivity. I have a record of saying that if we have a disabled person and he or she cannot see but can speak and do something for the school, they need to be included. This board knows the environment in which they are operating in. This board will engage the stakeholders. So, when we start talking and bringing everybody on board, we will be moving the Kenya the right direction, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one of the key problems that we're having in the education sector is problem resolutions. Handling problems. Mr. Speaker, who owns the headmaster? Who owns the principal? The teachers are owned by TSC, but the board of management is owned by the Minister of Education. When there is a discipline in terms of embezzlement on the head teacher or the principal, who is responsible? The ministry does the audit, and the TSC is expected to take disciplinary action. Who is more powerful? Where does the teacher belong? So we need a board that will be involved in the dispute resolution, where there is conflict between the community and the school, because we have seen many boundaries, noise, pollution, etc. So this board is very important at the constituency level. I agree with my colleague that we really need to go back with the definition, because we need to ensure it is constituency, not sub-county. I have 3 sub-counties. So if we are going to say sub-counties, then it means I need to have 3 boards in the same constituency. I support you, Madam Mawa, on this, and I urge the members, please, let's pass this with a record, because it all affects all of us. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Madam Ziggy, followed by CNN. But before you rise up, I want to recognize the presence of Appleton schools from the Greater North who are in the public gallery. Is there any member of parliament from Nairobi here who would give a word of encouragement to the young learners or youthful learners? In the absence, I'll call on Honorable Waluke to give a word of advice to the students from Appleton schools. Proceed, Honorable Waluke.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance. Honorable Speaker, I want to advise the students first to welcome them here in Parliament, for them also to learn, because we know their future. Some of them are going to become like us. And to get this position, you must work very hard, students, so that you may be like one of the MPs here either female or male. So you work hard. Oh, you are all female. Yeah, so you should work very hard to get this position. You see, these ladies worked very hard. All of them have gone through universities, and you must make sure that Kenya is changing very rapidly. They consider the academic, they consider your qualification, so it is not for free. When you go back, tell your parents that we visited Parliament, and this is how we are here in this house. So thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance.
Good. The Honorable Madam Izigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me a chance to contribute on this one, Mr. Speaker. And I want to begin by congratulating Honorable Wamaua for a well-thought idea and bringing it here as an amendment bill for us to be able to talk about it, meditate on it, and also contribute on it. Mr. Speaker, matters are basic education, and I want to begin by echoing the sentiment of many of my colleagues who have said that devolution came so that services can be closer to the people. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, when we speak about the education board, the county education board and the sub-county education board, looking at the county education board, on most cases they are normally overwhelmed. They are overwhelmed because they have to make all the decisions. They have to oversight the entire county, and in most cases, these things are not done on time. There are many challenges that comes with the county education board, and if only we can empower the sub-county ones, the boards that are at the sub-county level. These many challenges such as duplication of work, delay in decision-making, and a limited oversight in the capacity building of the entire education system, then I think things will be better. And education is not something that we can go wrong with it. Education is not something that we can play with, Mr. Speaker, and therefore I really want to support this one, because when we empower the sub-county education board, then they are able to fast-track development because they're able to make decisions. They are also going to, a lot of progress and performance can be realized because they will be there to support in the sub-county level, and therefore work will be done in an easier way, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I want to support the formalization of this sub-county and for them to be given enough power to be able to make decisions. The sub-county board should not be there as ceremonial, and a lot of work is needed to be done in the county level. We have seen the president working so hard. We have seen the government employing so many teachers, almost or 76,000 to be precise. And therefore, he needs to be supported. And some of these changes or some of these amendments are going to come in handy to be able to support the education system, Mr. Speaker. And so I say big congratulations to Honorable Maua for bringing this amendment, and I support it. Thank you.
Honorable Ngusia, then followed by Abdul Haro and Tindi Mwale. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to this important bill Before I had my contribution,
You mentioned you wanted a special consideration because you just became a father last night.
yes, I got a baby girl.
You get a baby girl, and
Yes,
as part of the
yes. Thank you.
appreciation and
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for this recognition.
we don't have paternity leave here, so but you can have your paternity leave.
Thank you. The baby girl will grow to become one of the most important persons in this world and nation. And we love women. Mr. Speaker, before I had my contribution, I just want to draw to this house, we need to respect our women. I was in the labor ward for 4 good hours with my wife, and whatever women go through must be respected by the society. Mr. Speaker, there is no single man who is in any way supposed to bully a woman. And I recognize and respect women all over the world. I salute you. Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity also to wish all the Catholics worldwide a good Ash Wednesday, a day of repentance, a day of prayers, and a day Christians reflect on mortality and also seek forgiveness, Mr. Speaker. On the bill, I would like to start by thanking Mary Mainki for coming up with such an important Mary Wamaua. And Mary Wamaua is my good friend and a colleague, and let me salute the Honorable Lady for wonderful legislative proposal she has brought to this floor. Mr. Speaker, the bill is very progressive and timely, coming at a time when we are all adopting a new education policy and also the system, Mr. Speaker. I want to support it because by establishing this county education board, we are going to establish a clear data bank of all the institutions we will be having in our respective constituencies or sub-counties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill is also going to ensure that the board recommends institutions that may need funding and proper and adequate resource allocation, Mr. Speaker. Touching on the issues, I would like to recommend to the motion mover if we can also add the director of Teachers Service Commission on this matter, because some of these schools, TSC has not allocated enough resources to the schools. So we can have director of education from the ministry and also director of Teachers Service Commission. It will make sense in allocating or rather staffing these schools and institutions, Mr. Speaker. On the issue of composition, let me laud the inclusion of member of parliament because he's the representative of the public, and I think the board will do a lot of issues, a lot of good things to establish this institution. Mr. Speaker, the school, if this board, if it's going to be established, will assist the Ministry of Education in allocating resources that are adequately needed. And it will also enable the schools, the board of management, to come up with competent and proper quality of the board members. Because most of the schools are facing the challenges of BOM. They end up electing somebody, or rather appointing somebody who has just cleared Form 4. We need to bring this sanity to ensure that even the people who are doing these stakeholders meetings, they have a relevant qualification to manage this institution. Mr. Speaker, there is so much to talk about it. Let me support it and appreciate that This honorable lady has done a good job, and we need to support it. And in case of any amendments, I'll be bringing this amendment to include the Teachers Service Commission in this board. With those few remarks, I support fully. Thank you.
MP for Mandela South. What's your point of order? What's out of order?
Thank you, Speaker, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge this House to allow those who don't have cards to be given an opportunity, because, you know, now I'm trying to press and I lost my card. So I request for an opportunity to contribute, because this is a very important motion, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Fair enough. Abdul Haro, and then I'll come to the ladies. Where's Mwale Tindi? He's not in.
Thank you.
Okay. After Tindi Mwale, then the lady, gracious ladies, Jematia and her neighbor, and then, of course, we come the other side. There's also.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, yes, indeed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity, so that I can make my contribution to this very important bill. And from the onset, I must thank the sponsor of the bill, Honorable Mary Wamaua. As it has been said by my fellow colleagues who have spoken before me, the bill is timely. And the bill proposes changes to the Basic Education Act 2013 to establish sub-county education board in each sub-county. And the objective of the bill is to decentralize education oversight by creating localized boards which are under the guidance of the county education boards. Honorable Speaker, this bill is very important because it touches at the education sector at a time when we are having a lot of crisis in the education sector. We are grappling with the question around capitation in our schools. We are grappling with the question around university funding model, the inadequate JSS classrooms, the inadequate laboratories, lack of infrastructure, lack of teachers, so many challenges in the education sector currently. And one of the theaters where these challenges are playing out is actually at that lower level, particularly at the sub-county level, where most of those challenges actually exhibit their ugly heads in a very big way. Honorable Speaker, it should not be lost to us that education is actually the equalizer of society. And being an equalizer of society, we also have a lot of other things that make us not realize that equalization bit of education as the equalizer of society. For example, we have differences in some of our regions, socioeconomic inequalities. We have systemic inequalities. And then what I've said earlier about lack of infrastructure. Now, coming to the bill is very important for those reasons I've mentioned. And for example, if you look at, there are certain areas that I would like Honorable Mary Wamaua to look at in terms of trying to enrich this bill. For example, in 18A3B, when the bill talks about, in consultation with residents of the sub-county, recommend institutions that may receive funding for infrastructural development funding. This is a good proposal. It enhances public participation in a way, and it should be strengthened. But I'm wondering why, despite of many challenges we have in the education sector, why are we zeroing down on infrastructural development funding only? Maybe you can expound it a little bit so that you can include not just infrastructural development funding, but also the questions around, you see, 50% of our students are left behind due to lack of appropriate electronic devices and lack of electricity, lack of connectivity. So perhaps that can be expounded a bit to include other areas slightly, not just infrastructural development. When you look at 18C, perhaps Honorable Mary Wamaua can also consider this. It says 18C1, every sub-county education board shall consist of a chairperson and 6 other members appointed by the cabinet secretary through an open competitive process. I'm wondering why open competitive process when these members, sub-county director of education, county executive in charge of education, the person designated by TSE, these officers are already working in other institutions, and they just need to be appointed by those institutions to join the board. Why the competitive recruitment? I think that's an area, honorable member, you can look at. And then the question around, I think Honorable Maua talked very nicely about the inclusion of members of parliament in this board. I would beg to differ slightly, and perhaps you may look at it from my perspective. MPs provide oversight. And I think, given that and the challenges we have had before, including with the NGCDF fund, there is no need of including an MP in this sub-county board. The MPs can remain to provide the oversight, and other members can become part of the board. And when we look at 18C again, 2F, when we talk about the two educationists of at least 5 years standing based in sub-county nominated by the teacher, this is a very good idea, and I support it fully. But if you read this in relation to 18G, where you're talking of a sub-county education board may from time to time co-opt in its membership. Once you have these two professionals, educationists, I don't think the purpose for having a co-opted member was supposed to bring in perhaps experience and expertise. We already have the expertise there. It's my opinion. I think that the two experts who are already there are sufficient. We don't need to co-opt other experts, because those ones can play that same role. And then in section, section, that was section 8. Sorry. That is 18C again, part 6. The staff of the sub-county education board shall be persons serving under the county public service board of the respective county. I think we can also rethink about that, because looking at the separate functions of the county governments and the national government in relation to education, one concerned with the ECD and the other one concerning with the basic education, perhaps you may find some challenges along the way if the staff of the sub-county, the staff of the sub-county education board are from the county public service board. And finally, Honorable Speaker, in section 18F, the members of the sub-county education board shall be paid by the organizations they represent in the board such allowances and disbursements for expenses as may be approved by the cabinet. It's a good idea, but if you look at it from the independence perspective, if you want these board members to be independent, perhaps you will want to have the board pay its own board members and not those institutions which have seconded them to the board. If you want to assure that there is independence in conduct of the business of the board, and also the question around uniformity of what allowances to be paid, the board may decide to pay certain allowances which is not equivalent to the same allowance they are paid by the institutions. And again, as I said, 18G might not be necessary if we have the other two experts involved. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Those are my comments, and I would urge other members to fully support this bill so that we can pass it in record time. Thank you.
Honorable Tindimwale, and then you will, the ladies will have a, but Tindi, proceed.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this Basic Education Amendment Bill 2023 that looks at establishment of sub-county education board in every sub-county. Mr. Speaker, just as my colleagues have indicated, this bill is timely and is of the essence that we treat it as a bill that is going to bring better efficiency in terms of providing education to our children. Mr. Speaker, just to continue from where my colleague had left, I'll go straight to the composition of the sub-county education boards. I want to thank my colleague, Honorable Mary Wamaua, for the well-articulated component on the composition of sub-county education board. But what I would like to bring to our attention is the fact that when you are coming up with the persons to be in this board, try and consider gender balance, also consider youth and people living with disabilities, because it's not clear how we will make sure that we have people living with disabilities being represented. We have gender, so that we have ladies and women being represented, and also we have young Kenyans being represented. And then, Mr. Speaker, also on the issue of quorum, how the committee shall function. As you know, 85% of parliamentary work is done in committees, and we have a way in which committees are run. This board, Mr. Speaker, just looking at the way it is composed, it is a committee, and therefore the honorable member needs to outline how many members form a quorum. And the moment you come to how many members form a quorum, Honorable Meru Maua, you'll have to look at the qualification of the chair. Because if the chairman is supposed to have a degree and other members not to possess a degree, what happens when the quorum is there and the chairman is absent? The members who are present will have to choose a chair, and that chair will perform functions of that board. And therefore, the qualification of those members need to be tandem with those of the chair. And then the other issue, Mr. Speaker, is on the efficiency, is on the functions of the board. I don't wish to repeat every function because my colleagues have already elaborated, but we have had a challenge with the curriculum implementation in basic education. And that's where you find even the CBC education system has become a thorn in the flesh for many of the parents and the stakeholders in the education sector. This board, Mr. Speaker, is going to look at the implementation of the curriculum. And this one will bring better efficiency in terms of education being given to our children. Mr. Speaker, also the issue of national policy in education being interpreted to the downward scale. We have had an issue where policies are generated in Nairobi, and how to bring them down to the common staff within the education sector becomes a thorn in the flesh. This board is going to help in the interpretation of national policy and also come up with the policy reforms. Mr. Speaker, what my colleagues have not highlighted and which I wish to bring to your attention is what the bill has delegated. The bill has delegated powers to the cabinet secretary to come up with the regulations. And these regulations are going to aid in the coordination of this board with other boards, because we have the county education board and also we have the national education board. So these regulations, which will be brought by the cabinet secretary, are going to outline the coordination between the county, the sub-county, and the national education board. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I want to thank my colleague for the noble idea and support that this bill be passed with amendments. Thank you very much.
Before I call on the ladies, I would want to get Honorable Russell to be very brief. Honorable Russell, please, because you have to go for a serious
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this, what I call a very progressive bill. Honorable Maua, initially as I looked at your bill, I asked myself, why didn't this come as an omnibus? But with hindsight, I saw that this particular instrument that is being proposed has a far-reaching effect, more than just a line on an omnibus. So for that reason, as this becomes a standalone bill, I support it, and I support it largely on 3 areas. Firstly, our Constitution today talks about devolution and decentralization. When we say County Education Board as the epicenter of coordinating education in the county, looking at the rise in population, the configuration of what you call sub-counties today, there are constituencies that have 3 or 4 sub-counties because of vastness that the population live from each other. And on the onset, I want to countenance what Honorable Kenan there said, that let us look at the counties as the epicenter of this devolution. And I tend to disagree with them, because we are basically decentralizing only to centralize again at the constituency. So for that reason, the elephant in the room for Honorable Maua to convince the Committee of Budget is that this will require quite a bit of money to be put into the education sector. Beyond that, I think all other factors remaining constant, this is a very important bill that we in this House must support. And particularly, I want to say again, for those of us who are pastoralists, who come from ASAL, our major difficulties today, although we are told education is one, but we find that education is on 2 tiers. The education of the first counties in this country and the education of those who are far-flung away from the center. So there are 2 types of education. And so for that reason, when we begin to decentralize education at the grassroots, then they are going to reach every corner of this country. Honorable Speaker, with CBC, this is the way to go. Today, in the constituency of Saku, there are schools that when it rains, actually the education team cannot reach that place. You leave only the teachers, the parents, and the students to be in that school. If it rains for the next 3 months, then those schools are cut off. But when you have a sub-county team that can use all means to access that institution, then I think that is the way to go. In terms of supervision, Honorable Speaker, me and you, we know that one of the difficulties of having low turnout, low performance, low everything in education in our region, in this country, is because of supervision. That the county education board is 300-400 kilometers from some of our constituencies. So that makes it so difficult for them to even arrange logistics to be able to supervise, not even day to day, even on monthly basis. Honorable Speaker, also, this has to do with promotion of teachers, postings. When somebody has a first-hand information on what really goes on. On the constitution of the board members, what I think, Honorable Maua, you need to take into account is as soon as you have laid down the bottom, what is the basic education requirement, you must make it basic as opposed to it appearing to be the ceiling. That the basic is post-secondary for all the members, but they can have university education and also specialize in certain fields. But from the look of it, from the drafting, it appears that appears to be the basic, which I think members are uncomfortable with, and I think you have been guided as well on the same. Finally, Honorable Speaker, it is about registration of schools, funding in the schools, and also things like a school feeding program. This would be best placed to address those issues. Today, it takes us not even months, year, for a school to be registered. Basically because that board, I think, meets 2 times or 3 times a year. But a sub-county education board can actually meet every 2 months, every 3 months, or even every month if there is that emergency that is required to be attended to within a constituency or within a sub-county. With those remarks, I support this very progressive law proposed, and I ask all colleagues to support it. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Chematia, followed by Kathambi and Lesuda, in that order. You will get your bite, don't worry. And if you take as long, as few minutes as possible, you'll allow many members of parliament, including the honorable member from Gichogo, to have a bite at this. Just take about 5 minutes, although you are entitled to 10 minutes, but you can say in 5 minutes almost everything you want to say. Madam Kihara, I have noticed you. I can't forget you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and I want again say thank you for the opportunity, and also to congratulate my colleague, my friend, Honorable Amaua, for her consistency in looking forward to making sure that this bill has come to the floor again. As you can see, the bill came into place in 2023. And this bill, Mr. Speaker, is one of the most crucial bills that we have to consider during this time of presidential education times. Mr. Speaker, it should also be known that Honorable Amaua was a teacher before she joined this august house. And she comes with a lot of experience in terms of management. And if you look at her bill, it espouses so much the passion she has in terms of management. I like the way the current, she's trying to correct the situation that is there in the current structure of the education administration.
Order, honorable members, order. The Honorable Member Twalib Abubakar, you don't cross the floor just like that. You go right to the end at the bar and come back. And honorable members, these rituals are part of our practice, and they should be respected and upheld. Proceed, Jematia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry. And I want to, most members who have spoken before me have clearly put very good points across, and I will not belabor so much. But I want to say that this sub-county education office is going to enable and recorrect most of the injustices that have been happening within the education sector. Since the times of devolution, we have realized that education has suffered a lot of mismanagement problems. And this new board that is going to be put in place, which as Honorable Member Maua has tried so much to put it in a very basic way that is able to help the reports that come from every school in the sub-counties to be well managed within the sub-counties without necessarily going all the way to the counties so that it comes back again. Being the liaison now, they can be empowered through this bill so that they are able to make the decisions because they interact with the teachers and the schools in almost a daily basis. Mr. Speaker, looking at the challenges so far, it is the delay in decision making. As you know that education is children spend almost an entire year in school. And when decisions are not made in the right time, most likely the impact is going to be very negative in terms of results and in terms of quality of education when the management is not put in the right time and right place. Unlimited oversight capacity is also another thing, Mr. Speaker, that the county, sub-county, if empowered, are going to give us the best results. And many times, the quality in education is going to give us quality lives and quality in the country. And many times the education and exams management, for instance, Mr. Speaker. If you also look at in the bigger picture, I would probably propose in the future that for us to have these schools be able to be managed properly, we should be considering having very minimal schools within our constituencies so that we don't have schools, a lot of schools built all over the place. You can realize that every time you go and, like I'm a member of a county MP, you look at the schools probably in a ward, you have almost 10 to 15 schools almost in the same perimeter. This also contributes to mismanagement because of the unable proper management and handling. Because when you have many schools, definitely you'll have to, spread the resources so thin. You will also have, these officers will not have a lot of time and get proper reports. And we'll always realize that the more you have these schools that is not properly managed, the quality of education becomes so bad. I remember during our days and now, if you compare children who are in public schools today, in the villages, and compare those who are there during 844 times, early times of 844, the quality of education and quality of even the quality of teachers that we have today depends so much on how the schools are being run. And this is because we are looking at the quantity at the expense of the quality. I am suggesting probably even as we cure this proposed bill of the sub-county board, that we should describe and elaborate what is a school. If we can have few schools in our sub-counties that describes the amenities that a school should have, and put it either day and boarding, and put it also in primary and secondary school, so that the management, even as we create and enable this sub-county board to be in place, it will be able to have schools that are built to last. If you look at schools that are built probably during Moi time, the schools that we have today and we still depend on, or colonial schools that we have today, those are the schools that gives quality education because of all the amenities that is created within the same environment and gives the children and the pupils our own wellness. And this is what also helps in management. Even as we look at the sub-counties and cascading down the management of the schools, it is also good for us to also plan ahead and understand that it is important for us to have quality instead of quantity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
My MP for Njoro. Well, you will get a bite, don't worry, all of you. If you take about 5 minutes, you really allow so many members of parliament.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for granting this opportunity for me to do contribution in relation with the Basic Education Bill, which has been brought by Honorable Amaua. Mr. Speaker, sir, education is very important. And if some of us did not get education, we could not be where we are today. Therefore, we start by applauding our colleague for having researched and found the challenges which we have really encountered. Myself being a member of parliament in a single constituency, that is in Njoro in Nakuru County, we have had a lot of challenges. Therefore, for me, when I look at the bill amendment today, Honorable Mary is bringing here, it is a confirmation that we are going to have proper education management. And Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to say that the centralization of decision-making
will really assist each one of us to improve education in our respective constituencies and also areas. Mr. Speaker, sir, why I support the bill which our colleague has brought today, it is of the much challenges I have encountered myself. The registration of schools, new schools, is a big challenge in this country. We sometimes have some large constituencies where students walk for very long distances. But when it comes to the registration of new schools, we have a lot of challenges. Therefore, the composition and the proposals of the team and the board members Honorable is proposing here, it will really enable the proposed board members to come up with quick decisions, and also there will be locality and the grassroots solutions when it comes to the matters of registration of schools. But allow me also to support that when I was looking at what is being proposed as the sub-county board, I felt this board must ensure, because most of the times we are also getting some boards which are not properly constituted. Therefore, we would like the people living with disability and also assurance that also gender issue, like women, will be considered. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I want also to say why I'm supporting this. It is because if the challenges we have encountered by most of the decisions made in county level, this time there will be also ease of conflict management locally and at grassroots, where we sometimes get a lot of challenges which really take a lot of time to be resolved. Also, Mr. Speaker, sir, this is going to enable the student and the teachers to be heard and to be supported at local level. Therefore, it will be ensuring that there's great support on the processes and also the structures on the ground, which also affect our schools. And also allow me to say that why I'm supporting this issue, it is because most of the times also, we have had a lot of challenges when it comes to the distribution of resources. Therefore, with the composition of this locality at sub-county level, this will enable the committee, the board members, to sit and make decisions of the kind of money which the government gives, and also to some extent, the money which we also get like from donors and also grant from different people of goodwill. I think the composition of this will really enable improved and also fairness of the resources. And also, Mr. Speaker, with the composition of the local and the sub-county offices, it will really assist us also for the team to do a quick and also quick movement, so that when there is also a matter of confirming where constituencies or which levels can be improved, I think it will enable the board members to make quick actions, and also they can also travel and see purely, physically, what is to be improved and where. Therefore, I found also there has been a lot of challenge when making decisions. There has been a lot of delay when it comes to the matters of infrastructure, approvals, and the way I've said also the big challenge of the registration of the new schools. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I'm supporting this, having seen the challenges our parents also and other stakeholders undergo in matters of education. Therefore, I find the Basic Education Amendment Bill by Honorable Mary, it is really going to be a solution to very many problems we had in this country. Okay. Therefore, for me, Mr. Speaker, let me thank you and take a few minutes so that my colleagues also can contribute. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable Lesuda, if you take as few as 2 or 3 minutes, you will allow Honorable MP Geshemu also to have a bite at it, because I wish I had all the time. Honorable Malio and Honorable Besunda, I respect you all, but let's see if they take very little. Please take a minute or two to allow your colleagues also to have a bite at it.
Thank you, Mr.
Proceed,
Speaker.
proceed.
Actually, I'll ask that I be timed so that in 2 minutes I will allow, I will conclude and then allow my colleagues to also have an opportunity. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate Honorable Wamaua for being very consistent on matters education in this House. Consistently, when there's any debate or when there's any issue to do with education, she has been very consistent and passionate about it, and you can even see it through the thought process that she put into this amendment bill. So she's not just a fierce politician, but she's also concerned with matters education of our country. I don't want to belabor the importance of devolving matters education to the sub-county level. I'm sure at the county level, even those who have been doing this work will admit that it is definitely overwhelming. We know some of our counties are very vast, even for just the county team to look at the entire county and the issues that the issues that affect the various counties. But once it is devolved to the sub-county level, Mr. Speaker, it will definitely increase efficiency, effectiveness, and even timeliness in terms of dealing with the issues that arise and not wait until the county team sit down. I have had a number of my colleagues talk about issues to do with gender, the issues to do with disabilities, marginalized groups, but I have seen Honorable Wamaua in the bill has captured this. She has talked about not more than 2/3 of the members of the same gender, equal opportunities for persons with disability, and even marginalized groups. And so all this has been captured in the bill, and I must commend her, and I do hope that this House then passes this bill and ensure that its implementation is done. Lastly, on the issue of Member of Parliament, maybe you can think about it and maybe have the chairman of NGCDF in the counties sit in that committee so that the Member of Parliament can do the oversight, but because the chairman knows the issues in the sub-county or in the constituency, he or she is the one who can sit in that committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Gishimo, if you take a minute, then while you can have also a minute. Proceed. Proceed, Gishimo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also rise to support this bill by Honorable Mary Wamaua, member for Maragua. And without repeating what my colleagues have said, but I just want to point out a few issues that need to be addressed in this bill that in consultation with the Honorable Wamaua, I'll seek we amend clause 18A E, where we are leaving room for other functions which have not been outlined in the bill. So it's a bit risky. We can only leave any further legislation to regulation, or we have a bill that is also conclusive on the functions of the board. Honorable Speaker, I also see that the Parent Act had an intention of actually establishing a sub-county board, because if you look at the existing section
Honorable Gishimo, you appreciate if you just take less than a minute now, because then there's a report also, very important report to be tabled. I will stop you, then you'll have 1 minute more. Honorable Deputy Speaker, can you proceed and table, and then I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 5th March 2023. The report of the Liaison Committee on its consideration of the 2025 Medium-Term Debt Management Strategy.
Thank you. You realize finance bills take precedence over any other business. Yeah, proceed. Proceed and give the notice of motion.
Okay. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give the notice of the following motion: that this House adopts the report of the Liaison Committee on its consideration of the 2025 Medium-Term Debt Management Strategy laid on the table of this House on Wednesday, 5th March 2025. And pursuant to the provisions of Section 15(4) of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 and Standing Order 232A 7 and 8 A, approves the 2025 medium-term debt management strategy, and B, makes the policy and the financial resolutions contained in this report. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Proceed, Honorable Gishimu. You have a minute more. Honorable Bensouda, I will also give you a moment.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Basically, this bill seeks to bring services closer to wananchi or to the people. And
yes, what's the point of order?
The point of order is that you guys have refused to see me.
No. Order, Honorable Jenkihara. Order, Honorable Jenkihara. You didn't have a card, and I got that information very late. And I'm looking at the list here. Nonetheless, you are a senior member, and I have a lot of respect for you. You will have a moment. Just be patient. Be patient. Be patient for a minute. You will have a moment to also take a bite. Proceed. Take just 1 minute, Honorable Gishimu, please. And then.
yes, I don't know whether my time is still ticking, but I appreciate that this is a very important bill, and that is why most of the members really want to contribute to it. And I believe they will still get a chance because the mover will have to contribute on another. But I generally support. It's a very, very, very important. But I will consult with the Honorable Maua, even on the composition of the board. I think it exceeds what has already been mentioned so that we can fine-tune it so that it can be in good, and the numbers can match. The numbers are not matching. And also, I would also suggest that the representation of a member of parliament to be sitting in the board, to be briefing the member of parliament, like the chairman of the NGCDF committee, because for members, we do not manage. We
Fair
can
enough.
only oversight. Thank
Fair
you,
enough.
Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Kiara, take 2 minutes, and then Honorable Bensouda will have also take 2 minutes. Please. Madam Kiara, please give the mic to Madam Kiara. Yeah, you're there. It's there.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also would want to applaud Honorable Maua on this very progressive bill. You know, in this house, what we do at the constituency level mostly is education. I'm wondering, Mr. Speaker, on the name of the bill, because it's basic education bill, but I would believe the board will take care of basic, higher, and even TVET. So I'm still thinking how it can be put so that it covers all. There's also 18G. 18G, she says that the committee, the board can co-opt. I was wondering who would pay for this. Otherwise, everything I think has been said. Equity of teachers. Mr. Speaker, registration of schools, and I'll give just one example. I sit down. There was a school that was, Mr. Speaker, I know there was a school that was condemned by the Ministry of Health. And to get that school deregistered, it took forever so that we put a new school there or new structures, because it has to go all the way to Nakuru. Nakuru has 11 constituencies. Changing a name of a school. So it has so much to do. And we also want to know, this money we disburse, how does it perform? It can only be discussed at that kind of a board. So I support the teacher in Maua. This is very progressive. Asante sana.
Bensouda, take as few as 2 minutes maximum, please.
Minutes, tafadhali.
No.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I rise to congratulate Honorable Mary Maua for this kind of initiative that is done. And I want to believe that your background is equally my background, and you are passionate about this. It will be a criminal offense, Mr. Honorable Speaker, if this went without a guru teacher like me speak over it. One, I support it on 4 basic facts. One, on inclusion of the member of parliament as an ex officio, which I may deviate, but I have no problem in including the member of parliament as an ex officio. Reason, all the problems to do with education, we are the representatives, and when we come to parliament, we are the ones who represent even the voices of the teachers. Having the funds manager or having the member of parliament as an ex officio makes work to be smooth and coherent on issues of education. Number two, I rise to support the Basic Education Act 2013 because it has touched about meeting of 4 times meeting quarterly. This will make or enable the problems, the challenges to be implemented. Number 3, I rise to support it because of the issue of monitoring and evaluation. Honorable Speaker, I'm a guru in M&E. One of the things which fail us as a country, resources are disbursed and mechanisms of monitoring and evaluation are not implemented. I want to say, Honorable Speaker, just 1 minute, in regard to teachers and the functionality of the board, the sub-county boards, they will not be effective, one, without adequate resources.
Okay.
And I want to finalize by saying, on teachers' recruitment, a number of schools in the wards, where I come from, where I'm born, is Homa Bay Town, Kanyada West. Okay. There is a school called Radiro Primary School. It is always given a teacher who retires every year. Okay. The retiree. This business should be checked by the sub-county, the board.
Yeah, the Honorable Tonui, take exactly 1 minute, and then we adjourn this matter. Please give Tonui 1 minute. Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to add my voice on this important bill, the Basic Education Amendment Bill 2023. First, I want to commend Honorable Maua for coming up with this progressive bill. The purpose of this bill, Mr. Speaker, is to bring services closer to the people. I support all what my colleagues have talked about. In my county, Nakuru, it is very huge, 11 sub-counties. So the county education board has a lot of work. They meet very rarely, and there are a number of issues in the sub-county. So by creating this sub-county, the services will be moved closer. Monitoring on infrastructure funds and quite a number.
This motion is still going, this bill is still coming up for further debate. And when we come back to debate this bill, you will have 9 minutes, the Honorable Tonui. Honorable members, the time being 1:07 p.m., this House stands adjourned until today, Wednesday, the 5th of March, 2025, at 2:30 p.m.
last year did some good job working together with the national government. The only challenge we continue facing as a country is budgetary constraints. But to agree with you, because now Kisumu is one of the areas that is forecasted to have higher than normal rains, it is important for us to do what we need to do now. And I think we will do everything humanly possible within the budget that we have to do so. On the Senator Sigei's on Nyayo, Nyayo actually is, to be honest, Nyayo needs urgent attention, particularly when it comes to the lifts. Anybody who, I have an office there, so I get stuck in the lift many times. So I have a personal experience, including using the basement you've talked about, leaking and so forth. But then when you have a budget situation or austerity measures, you are struggling between providing social services, health, and others, and renovations. And that's why we are facing the situation we are facing. But we will continue working to see what we'll do with Nyaya House. But I agree with Senator Sigei. And also that in the Maraga report, Mr. Speaker, we are implementing Maraga report in total, including already improved salaries to police officers of a lower cadre. These issues about transfer is being worked out, among many other things. And I think I'll have an opportunity in future to come and expound further because this is a very important report for us, as was the first task force that the President established when he came to office. On the question of Senator Mandago, indeed I'm going to Marsabit soon, and I'll inform the Senator of Marsabit so that we can have a personal view. There are many things that have been happening in Marsabit. We've done massive operation in Marsabit to deal with the issues of OLA and also drugs and many other things. So we will have an opportunity to visit with him so that we can see what's happening. On the KWS issue, indeed, it was of great concern for us what happened in Tana River and Nakuru. And I think we have been in conversation with the DG KWS. We will enhance this conversation between Kenya National Police Service and KWS to see whether there is a problem somewhere that needs to be dealt with among the officers that serve in KWS to ensure that we avert such situations in the future. And finally, I agree with Senator Kavindu, Agnes, that it is true that Machakos, we have had challenges in Matungulu, but those challenges, Mr. Speaker, were also related to criminal gangs, which are owned by politicians in the Matungulu area. And Mr. Speaker, like we have tried to do so across the country, we have been feeling the resurgence of political gangs or criminals posing as political gangs and pretending to be working with politicians across the country, in Western, in Rift Valley, in Mombasa, in Machakos, Matungulu area, among others. And Mr. Speaker, we are dealing with it. We will, I promise that we will dismantle these gangs, including in Matungu in Kakamega County. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Cabinet Secretary, and it was nice to have you, and looking forward to have you again. Honorable Senators, it is now 1:15 p.m., and having concluded the business for which I extended the hours of sitting pursuant to Standing Order 34-2A, the Senate stands adjourned until today, later today, 5th March 2025 at 2:30 p.m.
Thank you.
Please be seated in heavenly places. Talking to you about a message that I'm coming out with a book on it, entitled Household Wickedness. Household wickedness. The Bible said that the whole world lies in wickedness. And some of the things I preach are a result of my personal experience and adversities. It's not what somebody told me or what I read in somebody's book. It's a personal experience, so you can't take it from me. I'm very passionate about it. The Apostle John said, what we have heard, what we have handled of our hands, and what we have proven is what we deliver unto you, that you may have fellowship with him by what we have experienced, not what somebody told us. A preacher flew from the States and came to see me the other day, a bishop. And he said, I've followed you on YouTube for years now. And I'm very interested about the way you pray. There is something about your prayers and your utterances. What makes you pray the way you pray? I want you to teach me. I said, you want me to teach you to pray the way I pray? I said, are you sure? He said, yes. And I said, okay. I pray the way I pray because of the adversities of life. If you haven't experienced an adversity in life before, you will pray, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. I don't pray those prayers. David said the other day, when my heart is overwhelmed from the ends of the earth, I will cry out, lead me to a rock that is higher than I. When Peter came out of the boat and he began to drown, he didn't say, our Father in heaven. He said, help! Somebody say, help! The reason why some of you pray romantic prayers, sign of the